Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Thank you for your support. There is a Dharma box for contributions in the kitchen and also a link for contributions on the website.
Good morning, everybody. I think it's morning for most everybody. Maybe not Becky, but it's really good to see everybody here. It was very nice to sit Zazen with those of you in the Zendo and also with those of you online. And I also want to offer a welcome to anybody who may hear this Dharma talk online at a later date. We're happy to have you here as well. So, the Dharma talk. And I want to offer a special thank you to Marla, who is not feeling well, and she is the monitor for this talk. Marla, thank you so much, and I hope you get to feeling better. So, this Dharma talk, like everything else, arises from causes and conditions. It's based on articles written by Isho Fujita for the Soto Zen magazine, Dharma Eye. In this article, Isho Fujita brings Dogen Zenji's teachings on Zazen to life based on his own practice. Deepest gratitude to Isho Fujita as well as Dogen for their generous guidance. Gratitude goes on and on. To my teacher, Josho Pat Phelan, who brought my attention to the writings of Isho Fujita. To my root teacher, Peg Syverson, for more than I can express. And to every Dharma buddy for all their patience, wisdom, and support. So now I'm passing on this accumulation of teachings to all of you. Each of us is a lens through which the teachings actualize. Thanks so much for being here, for taking this journey together. In its closing for this series of essays, Isho Fujita acknowledges that after rereading his own words, he thought there were times he may have been a little too strident in declaring his understanding. He said that he was going to give some thought to that. He added that nonetheless, he hoped we might find what he offered useful. I appreciated this acknowledgement that his practice realization is always growing and changing. And of course, the same is true for me and for all of us. So today, I will do the best I can to present these teachings through the ever-changing lens of this being. And it will move through the ever-changing lens that is you. I hope some part of it offers something to explore in your own practice. You may not be familiar with Isho Fujita, so I'm going to read a biography. He was born in Japan in 1954 and studied developmental and clinical psychology at Tokyo University. He practices Aikido and something called Noguchi exercise, and I had to look that up. Noguchi exercise trains the body to move by its own weight and heightens the ability to move from the body's most relaxed state. At 27, he attended a week-long Zen session and became fascinated with Zazen practice. Eventually, he attended Antaiji, a Soto Zen monastery in the tradition of Kodo Sawaki and Kosho Uchiyama. From 1987 to 2005, he was a resident teacher at Pioneer Valley Zendo in Massachusetts. During that residency, he also taught at several universities as well as the Berry Center for Buddhist Studies. In 2010, he was assigned to be director of the Soto Zen Buddhism International Center in San Francisco. He's traveled to Zen centers and temples worldwide teaching about Zen and Zazen. He was a translator for one of Thich Nhat Hanh's books and was a contributor to Mountains and Rivers and is the author of Zen 3.0. The teachings I'm focusing on today are from his essay collection, Polishing a Tile, which is available in a PDF form online. And he is clearly an accomplished person, but what I appreciate most about him is his thoughtful teachings on Zazen. And that's what the talk today is about. It's based in Isho Fujita's essays, Zazen is not Shuzen, parts 1, 2, and 3. So what is Shuzen and how does it differ from Zazen? Compared to Zazen, Shuzen is goal-oriented, effortful, and dualistic. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it just isn't Zazen. According to Isho Fujita, it is a step-by-step, according to Isho Fujita, it is step-by-step instructions on how to attain a particular state of mind, a meditative state, a quieter mind, even what we may imagine to be enlightenment. Even though many of us have learned that Zazen itself is enlightened activity, it is still easy to sit Zazen with a goal in mind and with forceful effort. Forceful effort and being goal-oriented are habitual for many of us, certainly for those of us living in Western cultures. When our sitting practice is goal-oriented and I-driven, the approach is, I sit to attain that. This is not Zazen, it is Shuzen. In Zazen, there is nothing to attain. Shuzen requires forceful effort rather than effortless effort. When we hear the instruction to sit up straight or even sit upright, we are quite likely to sit rigidly using at least some degree of forceful effort, maybe a lot of forceful effort. Our attempts to sit Zazen can become a struggle between us and our physical and mental environment. This is Shuzen, and Shuzen is in some ways the opposite of Zazen. So does this description sound familiar? It can sometimes be subtle. I've noticed this in my own Zazen. Even though intellectually I know better, when 3 bells ring to start Zazen, my tendency is to sit more rigidly and to make Zazen into something special. For me, noticing this and beginning to allow that tendency to drop away has been a gift of Isho Fujita's teaching. Isho Fujita says, I believe that it is crucially important for us as Zazen practitioners to distinguish Zazen as the entirety of Buddha Dharma from Shuzen as one genre of it. Even though these two practices look similar at a glance, that is why Dogen repeatedly emphasized this point. Zazen is not Shuzen in his writings. Even if we are sitting in almost the same posture, it does not mean the content is also the same. So, how does Isho Fujita define Zazen? He says that in English-speaking countries, Zazen is usually translated as Zen meditation or sitting meditation. Isho Fujita says this is a mistake. That definition gives the impression that Zazen is an attempt to control the mind and attain a certain state of mind, applying a certain method. This confuses Zazen with other types of meditation. Isho Fujita says this is a description of Shuzen, not Zazen. He gives us Uchiyama Roshi's definition of Zazen as an effort to continuously aim at a correct sitting posture with flesh and bones and totally leave everything to that. In other words, Zazen is just sitting, or shikantaza. And I would add, based on everything I've read of Isho Fujita's writings, that effort aimed at Zazen sitting posture might be described as effortless effort. Because most of us are habitually driven by a desire to achieve something, just sitting doesn't necessarily come easily for us. Isho Fujita says, When we hear that Zazen is about no achievement, we immediately ask, if Zazen is that, how can I do it? But this question is exactly stemming from the framework based on means and ends, which is always behind the Shuzen approach. It is nothing but an undertaking to grasp Zazen using the Shuzen concept. This Shuzen attitude is deeply rooted in our way of behavior and thinking. That is why we should take a radically different approach to Zazen so that we can avoid changing Zazen into Shuzen, consciously or unconsciously. Isho Fujita gives us some help to discern if we are practicing Zazen or Shuzen. He gives us the example of magic eye, digital art. He gives us the example of magic eye digital art as a metaphor for Shuzen and Zazen. You've probably seen magic eye art. It is digital art that looks like a bunch of dots. If you look at the digital art with a focus that's trying to see the three-dimensional image within the picture, it remains hidden to you. But if you relax your vision and wait patiently, a three-dimensional picture emerges seemingly from nowhere. And as soon as you go, wow, so cool, and start to focus in the usual purposeful way, the image disappears. Isho Fujita says this metaphor is similar to the whole different world of experience that unfolds depending on whether we sit Zazen in the Shuzen way of using body-mind or the Zazen way of dropping away body and mind. Shuzen correlates to the ordinary body-mind we use when trying to see the hidden picture. The body-mind of, I consciously operate my body-mind to accomplish a purpose. In contrast, Zazen is more like the magic eye approach of body-mind. The body-mind relaxes into a state of allowing and receiving. To say Zazen is not Shuzen is like saying swimming is not swimming lessons. Remember swimming lessons? Hold the side of the pool, kick, 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 effort, 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 effort. Learning the connection between breath and floating involved a lot of sinking. Learning to coordinate breathing with stroking, learning to hold your hands just so, and so forth. Put it all together, you are more or less swimming. But it probably still feels like a struggle between you and the water. When swimming really becomes swimming, there is no more struggle. The water feels like your home. Even if you've never experienced the water like this yourself, you can see it in Olympic swimmers, especially when they're just warming up or cooling down after a race. Struggling with the water to stay afloat is sort of like Shuzen. Moving and flowing in harmony with the water is sort of like Zazen. So how do we sit Zazen rather than Shuzen? The posture looks more or less the same. Zazen instructions can sometimes sound like a purposeful, forceful effort is required on our part. I remember the first time I gave Zazen instructions, the feedback I got from Peg was that I was being too directorial. Do this, now do that. I began using the phrases, allow this and allow that, and that seemed better suited to Zazen. But even when the instructions are softened, we may habitually require purposeful, forceful effort from ourselves anyway. Straighten the back, abdominal breathing, eyes half open, half closed, attention on the breathing, and so forth. I'd like to read a quote from Isho Fujita about sitting Zazen. In it, he uses the term the term non-fabrication, which was a little confusing to me. It means not artificially constructed. So Issho Fujita says about Zazen. Zazen should not be something forcefully built up by imposing a ready-made mold onto our body-mind from outside. It should be what is naturally and freely generated from inside as a result of non-fabrication. There is a danger that a rote way of giving Zazen instruction is leading us to change Zazen into Shuzen. In Zazen, the spine should elongate by itself instead of our lengthening it by effort. The principle of it is good to spontaneously become so, but not good to artificially make it so, should be applied not only to the spine, but also head, eyes, hands, arms, legs, and all other parts of Zazen posture, breath, and mind. Issho Fujita gave a talk at Upaya within the last few years, offering guidelines for sitting with the body-mind of Zazen rather than Shuzen. His talk is titled, Zazen as a Way of Harmonizing the Self. He describes Zazen as a main gate to Buddha way. The gateway includes posture, harmonizing the body, breath, harmonizing the breath, mental state, harmonizing mind. Harmony arises when we allow it. It can't be forced. It arises when we allow posture, breath, and mind to release, receive, and appreciate. This is not a demand. It is an allowing. Issho Fujita offers us a quote from Dogen that he believes supports Zazen as a process of allowing, release, receive, and appreciate. So this is Issho Fujita's quote. This is Issho Fujita quoting Dogen. Just set aside your body and mind, forget them, and throw them into the house of Buddha. Then all is done by Buddha. When you allow this without effort or calculation, you are free from birth and death and become a Buddha. This harmonizing of body and mind isn't orchestrated by sense of I. It isn't goal-oriented or purpose-driven. It is a qualitative shift to Buddha effort. Buddha within each and every one of us. So let's take a look at Issho Fujita's description of the actual sitting practice of harmonizing posture, breath, and mind. It's all about relationship. So Marla, are you still with us? Could we pull that chart up? So first, posture. Harmonizing the relationship to the ground. This begins by gently becoming aware of the sitting bones. Allow the body to move experimentally to find the balance point, usually at the central aspect of the sitting bones. Not too far forward and not too far back. You might recall that Dogen also gives these Zazen instructions. Discovering this balance point allows the spine to become naturally upright, an uprightness that is in harmony with the body and the earth, rather than a posture imposed by some outside thought. Allow the body to release into the earth. Fully receive the support of our mother, our home. This full support frees the spine itself to feel lighter than air, as if the head were a balloon. A sense of oneness and harmony is likely to arise, and with this, there is appreciation. This description of becoming aware of the sitting bones applies to what we think of as a standard body, but of course, bodies differ. Still, in all other ways, allowing the body to release to the earth, receive her support, and appreciate a sense of harmony is available to all bodies, to bedbound bodies, to bodies that are ill or weak, and to bodies that are differently constructed. We can all allow our bodies to harmonize in relationship to the ground. Breath, a harmonizing relationship with air. Isha Fujita says that every breath is a sacred exchange. Every out-breath is a releasing, an offering of ourselves to life. This releasing allows us to receive the gift of life on the inhalation. And we may notice the gap between breaths. Within this gap, giving and receiving become one. This releasing and receiving is a matter of feeling rather than thinking. We are not directing the breath, simply allowing the body-mind to harmonize with the breath. Within this harmony, our intimacy with the breath deepens and appreciation arises. We appreciate the giving and receiving carried on the breath, as well as the deep silence of the pause between breaths. Mind, harmonizing the relationship with sensory input. Buddhism teaches we have 6 modes of sensory perception: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Each becomes conscious of its object through sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, and so forth. Our senses are usually to some degree or another on alert for any potential threat. This is a tense, somewhat defensive state. The senses reach out and grasp at anything they perceive, sound, sight, and so forth. In sitting Zazen, we can drop the senses' tendency to reach and grasp. Instead, we can allow the senses to simply be. We can allow the senses to release tension. They can let go of grasping. They can relax. In this relaxed state, we can receive with ease whatever sight or sound or thought that may come our way, not grasping or rejecting. Simply being with life as it is. So, Marla, I think you could go ahead and take this down now. Thank you. So let's take a moment to explore this a little bit. This relaxation of the senses. Find an object in the room and look at it. Focus on it. So go ahead and do this. Find your object and focus on it. Do you feel how your vision sort of reaches out, sort of grasps whatever it is you're looking at? Now allow your vision to relax, to release, to become softer and more global. Do you feel the difference? Go ahead and play with this a little bit. With very focused attention versus this relaxed vision. When you're ready, bring your attention back to the room. In this exercise, perhaps you notice that the sense of sight remained very much alive and present, even when allowed to relax. The tension of seeing has been released, and sight simply is. Each of the senses can relax and release tension, and that includes the mind. Mind, mind consciousness, object of mind. Another way to say this would be mind, thinking, the object of mind. This would compare to eyes, seeing, object of vision. So it's mind, mind consciousness, the object of mind. Mind, thinking, object of thought. Thinking is the mind's function, just like the eye's function is to see. Just as you can relax and release the grasping of the sense of sight, you can also relax and release the grasping of the mind. This feels very much like it felt to relax and release vision. The mind continues to be very much alive. Just like when you softened your vision, there was still seeing. When you allow the mind to relax and release, there is still thinking. Go ahead and take a moment to play with this if you like. Instead of grasping at thoughts, simply allow the mind to relax into its natural state. When you're ready, bring your attention back to the room. You know, one thing I've noticed when I'm sitting Zazen and I allow my mind to relax, not only does the thought do whatever it's going to do after that, not only that, everything relaxes. My facial muscles relax, all my whole body relaxes. Maybe you notice that in this little exercise. When we sit Zazen, all the senses are relaxed but fully alive. In fact, when I allow my senses to relax, they feel more alive than ever. This being feels fully alive. When the senses release and relax, we receive whatever comes our way. And with that, there is great appreciation for the wonders of life. Soon this talk will come to a close, but before it does, I'd like us to sit together in Zazen for just a short while, in Zazen that is not Shuzen. And with this in mind, I will not be offering a guided meditation, but you are invited to experiment a bit with finding that point of balance in the sitting point, in the sitting bones, not too forward, not too far back. This allows a foundation for harmony of body, breath, and mind. You don't need to remember any details of this talk. From this balanced, grounded point, simply free the body, breath, and mind to feel what it is to release, receive, and appreciate. And Jess, I'll do bells for this. Dogen says, the Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. And I would add that this Dharma gate of repose and bliss is the source of our Bodhisattva vow and what we offer to the world, supported within this open-hearted Zazen. So that's the talk. Let's see what time it is. We have a little time. That was a lot, I know. And if you're interested, email me and I'll be glad to send you some links. And of both there's a video I'm familiar with, as well as Isha Fujita's essays. So when you're ready, any questions, comments? Was this just puzzling? Are you lost? What's going on? I see Anne's hand. Puzzled, huh, Anne?
Well, I think that a couple of things. The first being that this feels very close to falling asleep.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it's very relaxed, but what I end up doing when you say allow a soft focus is that my eyelids come down further, so there's less light coming into my eyes. I don't totally close my eyes, but and it's very relaxed. It's very pleasant.
Yeah.
But it feels similar to the state of right before I fall asleep. And I guess that kind of leads into my other issue, which is it feels like another thing saying you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I think that is, I think we can turn anything into Shuzen. This we can definitely turn into Shuzen, which is why I didn't want to give any guided instructions. But I think what he's pointing to is a more open, an open approach instead of going, okay, sit up straight, even internally, even if whoever's starting Zazen doesn't indicate that, still I'll get more rigid, you know. I think what he's pointing to is that it's more of an allowing than a forceful, I'm going to do it like this, or they said to do it like that. It's just a simple allowing, like from that balance point, your posture simply, from that balance point, your posture becomes what it needs to be. And you don't need to make it rigid in any way. And I don't know if I have a complete answer to what you were saying about the eyes, but what I noticed, I liked it that he mentioned that this applies to all aspects of posture, not just the uprightness of your posture, but he says it applies to the eyes, the hands, everything about the posture. It's more of an attitude. It's more of the internal attitude. And for myself, as far as eyes go, I started really paying attention to this as I studied Isha Fujita, and my eyelids are at different points during Zazen. Sometimes you might think they're closed to look at me. They're so close to closed. And other times, just very naturally, they're more awake. So this is, I would say, a more intuitive tuning into your body and mind. than depending on your ego or what somebody else tells you to do. And yeah, you let Buddha do it. That helps it all. And I see a bunch of hands. Michael.
Ellen, thank you very much. As you mentioned, this book, Polishing a Tile, to me, and I got a copy of it. And it's not infrequent that somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock a.m., I wake up to go to the bathroom, and then my mind starts whirling. And so I go into my office and sit in my chair, and I read a piece of Isho's writing. I read like one little chapter. They're relatively short. And then I sit and meditate for 25 minutes. And I've noticed that the quality of what I do has changed from what I used to do. I'm sure that I did a lot of Shuzen, and now there are occasions where I feel I'm doing Zazen. And so I really appreciate your explanation of it to further my, I suppose, understanding, but sort of an encouragement to continue doing this. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rosemarie.
Well, thank you, Ellen. I appreciated learning about this, and I did notice some differences when I was looking at the object and also relaxing my mind more. I agree with him when he went back and thought that his argument was too strident, because I feel like if the Shuzen part was just left out and he made his insights and his explanations clear as he has, that it would be more of a successful teaching, because it does, like Anne was saying, or at least that I was interpreting it maybe, it creates a duality of bad and good. And
Good point.
so I love what I've been learning, and I just want to put the other piece out of my mind because it's not helpful to compare.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think that's a really good point. And I think that is what he was pointing to about himself, perhaps. But see, I like that we're all so imperfect. He's so learned, and still he has to go, wait a minute.
Well, and actually, that is, I really appreciate that more than wishing that it was, the other piece wasn't there, is that he was able to take a look, after he writes this and say, oh,
He's going to take a look,
rethink that.
but he hopes it helps. and I guess that's what I have to say too.
And it does. I'd like to leave it with that. It absolutely does. So thank you, and especially because you're not feeling well, to put this together. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I was real happy to do it. Something came up when you were speaking that I wanted to address. Oh, I had thought the same thing. Like, I never would have learned how to swim without each one of those difficult struggles. And also I'm a big lover of Analayo and his teachings on sati, which are sort of a step by step by step by step. So I'm not saying, and I don't think he's saying either, that you just throw out the baby with the bathwater, but I think he's just pointing to a more open, a more intuitive approach to Zazen. And somebody said this to me, I can't remember who it was, just the other day we were talking about this, and they said, yeah, but all of those monks who were studying, all of those monks who came to Zen, they had done all this other stuff. They had done all of this difficult step by step. First you do this, then you do that, sit up straight. They'd already done all that. And so it's almost like Zazen, maybe like the fruit, the fruit of all that. That's something that certainly crossed my mind. But still, I hope that the openness of this approach is helpful for helping your body not be so tense and your mind not be so tense during Zazen. I know it has helped me. So, anything else?
Yeah, Kim has his hand
Hey,
raised.
Kim.
This was so beautiful, Ellen. Thank you so much. I'm just seeing it also as kind of a way that we can live our lives. And I'm thinking in particular, when we're driving, you know, like when we start out driving, our knuckles get white because we're gripping the steering wheel so hard. And as we drive more and more, I'm not there yet, but as we drive more and more, we can get a little bit relaxed. And then I love this thing, appreciating the wonders of the world. And also in making art, that's always been my practice, you know, but, and you know, just connecting with another person, being uptight or being relaxed.
Mhm.
And we can also see how so much mental and physical ills would come from not doing this.
Thank you so much, Kim. I think you're absolutely right. I think Zazen is just sort of mini living, you know, this little instant of how we live our lives. So I think, yes, definitely these teachings go forth into our life in a good way. And you know, I do not know your name.
Peyton.
Say it again.
Peyton. Payton. Peyton.
Like
Peyton.
Peyton Place.
Oh, Peyton. Peyton.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Peyton. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think I found this really interesting. I wasn't bothered by the idea of Shuzen, I don't think. But like you were saying, you know, I had to struggle in the water to learn how to swim. And I think if there, you know, I think at some point my ego had a thought that like, this is not working, we should probably sit and figure something else out, right? Like I think it took something that wasn't Zen to get me to Zen, right? And I think there are elements probably of Shuzen in my most Zazen states, and there are elements of Zazen in my most Shuzen states. And I don't see like a strict duality there. I see kind of, there's a quality of each potentially in the other. There's some striving in my Zen, and there's some Zen in my striving, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, I wasn't bothered by the duality. I found the teaching like a useful lens for me. But yeah, sitting here was really great, and getting my mind to stop grasping. You know, I can get my eyes to stop, I can get my ears to stop, but getting my mind to stop grasping at thoughts is that's tough. But it's nice to have this lens to look at it through.
Thank you, Peyton. I think what you said is really useful. And I think ultimately Zazen teaches Zazen. Just sitting, just do it, you know. In fact, that was my very first teaching on how to sit was like, just do it. That was pretty much it. Just sit still there for a little while, see what happens. Anything else? Thank you all so much for being here.
Nick has his hand
Hey,
raised.
Ellen, sorry. I'm
Nick,
probably
sorry, I couldn't see you.
all good. Thank you for your talk. I was actually thinking of this in terms of the five ranks and the tension between relative and absolute, right? And I think sometimes when we hear about relative, we think there's an easy, or Shuzen, there's an easy tendency to think bad, wrong, as opposed to just thinking about this as a map of the territory. Like, oh, this is what's happening right now. And both are coexisting. So Shuzen not being necessarily wrong, just like the discursive mind is not wrong and the discriminating mind is not wrong. It's just what we do sometimes. So looking at it through that lens and saying, how do these these ways of being coexist in our world might be an offering I make. So, but thank you so much for this. It was lovely.
You're welcome, and I think those are really good points. And in fact, everything everybody said has sort of completed the talk. So I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.